How should a restaurateur or a food purveyor show respect for the product at hand?
Yeah, a good question, Travon here. And I definitely defer to the other restaurateurs and professional chefs for their exact perspective, because I think it's very important to honor culinary respect between professionals in that field. Speaking as someone who manages and runs a cultural center, I think pragmatically, you always have to involve people first, right? We shouldn't be finding out after a restaurant is opened, after a product is launched, after a menu item is being promoted, that it has ties to this culture and no one from that culture has had a conversation about it. I know personally, my target to talk to would be other restaurants or people of that color. We live in a diverse world, and why it may not be as diverse in Albany as it is in New York City. Anissa alluded to being able to find Moroccans in Albany to discuss Moroccan cuisine with. You should be able to find those like Eric and Jude and others who represent that culture, and at the very least, ask for their opinion, right? And that's something that Dale brought up. You have to show the initiative beyond controlling the fire and the fallout and the difficulties and the bad press. Real interest and care is being proactive, not trying to diffuse the bomb after it's already placed. And I think that would go a long way towards getting people who are qualified, like the restaurateurs on this panel, to tell you the right direction to go.
Yeah, Eric, you had your hand up. Why don't you
Yeah,
address that
so
question?
yeah, I think any like myself, for example, branching to Japanese cuisine, I think it's important to know the background of the food, know the ingredient, know how the foods come about, so that when customers ask, you are better prepared to talk to them about it, educate them about it, engage them in it, so that it's easier for them to understand the culture. It's easier for them to appreciate the food. I think the worst thing is that when you make a product and you don't know the origin, the story behind it, you just create a lot of confusion, and sometimes you are taking away the native, like for example myself, if I create something that's I put a Japanese name to it, and there's the same, like for example there's the same dish, like for example takoyaki. Takoyaki has a very clear definition of what it is, but if I change the food and still giving the name, then I am profiting off from that food without that way it's like a cultural appropriation.
Right.
I would say it's based.
Eric, would you
Yeah.
say you're profiting off of it without permission?
Yes. So you
Okay.
change the content of the takoyaki, and then misleading people into something different. So,
Sure.
for example, if someone goes to my restaurant eat takoyaki, and they go to Japan and they say I want takoyaki, and they get something different, then I'm misrepresenting the culture, and then at the same time I'm profiting off
Right.
from the name. And I think a lot of times that's what happens when people just find something catchy and they do it without really understanding what it is, and you are giving people false impression of that of that food. I feel like personally, the better approach is to, if you're doing something and being creative. I mean, obviously, food and ingredient travels, all over the world, and you have, as a chef, you always have that creative urge to do something slightly different. But when you're naming it, I would say it's better to name it different than the original name, because you made a change to it.
Right.
One, that you can explain to customers why you made the change. And second, customers could recognize, oh, okay, this is what I need to look for, rather than something that's so generic that people just think, okay, this is what it is. That's what that the name is what the food is.